photograph these kids there because I wonder what it's like to grow up there. And so I went back and I made some photographs of this kid Adam, and I kind of started imagining a story around him where he kind of wanders through the town, the ingenue, and sees the art crowd. Marfa's a very poor town. There's no economy. There's no jobs. There's no future for these kids. And the kids' dream is to get the fuck out of West Texas, right? And then there's the art crowd that comes in from New York, which is from Chelsea, with money and very liberal ideas. And the actual town is still stuck in the 50s ideas, but the kids have the internet, so they see the world. And they have a curfew there where you have to be inside your house at 11 p.m. And there's a Border Patrol headquarters there, even though it's almost 70 miles from the border. The headquarters is there, so there's Border Patrol agents everywhere who have nothing better to do than to fuck with the local Mexican Americans. So if you're a kid going home or coming from a friend's house and it's 5 minutes past 11, you got your school backpack on, you're obviously a local school kid. But if you're Hispanic, the Border Patrol swarms you and throws you to the ground and asks you for your papers and maybe hits you a couple of times. I mean, it's really fucked up, racism and ridiculous. So I got this idea of, there's all this culture clash there and this racism. And I said, what would it be like to be a kid? And then I thought of my childhood in the 50s, my childhood and my adolescence in the 50s, and I referenced something that you probably don't know if you're like too young, but there was a book called Peyton Place that came out in the 50s, and it was supposed to be the underbelly of America's small towns, because back then there wasn't supposed to be anything going on except mom, white picket fences, and apple pie. And this woman who came from this small town wrote this book, and in the 50s it was thought of as a very, very dirty book, and I remember reading it because kids couldn't read the book, and it was a scandalous book back then in the 50s. And I read it, and the dirty part was this, and I can quote it out of the whole movie. The dirty part was a couple of 19 and 20-year-olds get in the back seat of the car, and she says to him, and I quote, "Is it up? Is it up good and hard?" That's it. And that was the dirty part of the whole book, which was scandalous in the 50s. And then there was like incest and all kinds of stuff going on. But it was like, thank you, that everything that happens today happened then. It was just never spoken about. So I said, well, I'm going to do Peyton Place here in Marfa, right? And I called a writer friend of mine, and I said, I'm going to do Peyton Place here in Marfa. I'm going to write it. And he says, oh, that's great. And he says, Peyton Place, huh? And he had no idea what I'm talking about, but he pretended that he did. And while he's talking to me, he's Googling Peyton Place, right? Which just shows you the difference between then and now, because back then, if you asked a question, it was just shut up, kid, you got slapped. Kids were supposed to be seen and not heard. And like now, kids have all the information at their fingertips. And so anyway, I just thought that this morning about Peyton Place. I really haven't mentioned that in an interview, because I just thought that was the original spark, the Peyton Place, to do it in there. And then I just started writing, and I made Adam the kid, and I went back 3 or 4 times, and I was writing, and the last time I went back, he told me that he had just gotten busted for being out past curfew, and he told me this story about him and this other kid, Christian. We're going to cross the road in the middle of town, the little highway, the little 2-lane highway. So the road's like 70 miles an hour, but it slows down from Marfa to 35, and then it gets beat back up to 70 to Alpine. This little 2-lane highway, and the highway splits the town. So they're going to cross the highway and it's past curfew. They look around, it's very dark. It's a very quiet town. There's like a... Oh, thank you. And the town is in the high desert. The high desert, so it's very quiet. There's no crickets, no nothing. It's a very quiet town. And so they start to cross the highway, and all of a sudden car lights hit them, and they get swarmed by Border Patrol, and they start running in a panic, and they run in different directions, and they catch Christian, who's leaped the fence, about a waist-high fence, and they leap the fence, they grab him, one Border Patrol guy grabs him, knocks him down, handcuffs him, and throws him back over the fence, picks him up, and throws this kid over the fence, and then Adam splits and is trying to climb a higher fence, a wooden fence, and the guy grabs him halfway over the fence and throws him down and hits him a couple of times. And so I said, well, I'm going to start the movie that way, Adam, and we'll go from there. So I sketched out the movie from my diary, and I wrote a 25-page screenplay. So the crew I hired from LA who came down could schedule the film, because we only had so much money and it had to be scheduled. And then I would wake up every morning at 5 o'clock and I would start writing it. I would write, I had all the scenes plotted out, and I would write dialogue, and then during the shooting I would think of other things, and I would take the actors aside, and I cast a lot of professional actors from Austin, and then the local kids like Adam and Mercedes, who played his 16-year-old girlfriend, were just local kids, and she's gorgeous. And I called. Someone had told me about this woman, Chia, who had this beautiful daughter, a friend of mine. Actually, it was Christopher's wife, Charlene. So I called Chia and asked her to bring her daughter in for casting. I was making a film. So she brought her in, and I brought Adam in. And it turned out that they'd known each other since they were 8. He was born March the 8th, she was born March the 9th, one day after. They were the same age. And that it was his birthday, so we shot the film on their birthday. So I made his birthday part of it, and so I just used very organic elements from real life, and then I just made up shit from all the people that I'd known in my life, and I always wanted to make a movie about a bad cop. And so I said, well, I'll make him a Border Patrol. And I kept making him badder and badder and badder during the film. And like that last scene where Adam's assaulted, I made it up. I remembered a kid. I remembered something from almost 40 years ago. So I put that in there. That I knew this cop that had done something like that. So I put that in there. But I told Adam and the actor, Jeremy St. James, who plays Tom, about 20 minutes before we shot, I said, oh, by the way, there's one other scene I want to do. And I got them together and I told them I wanted to do it. And they said, Jesus, Larry, okay, we'll do it. So that was really on the spot, no warning kind of a thing. And it was just fun. And so I painted myself in a corner now, because everything that happens physically can happen in the second film, like two girls, Adam and the two girls, the older neighbor who's really still a teenager in her head because she's stuck in the house with this kid, and her boyfriend, drug dealer, is in jail, Donna. So Donna and Mercedes, as age-appropriate girls, something physically happens, and then psychologically, how is Adam affected by the last few minutes of the film, that everything had happened, so I'm doing Marfa Girl 2, and I'm going to shoot it on the 17th birthday, and then Marfa Girl 3 on their 18th birthday, so I'm going to follow them, and I'm doing a trilogy. So I'm writing 2 now, and I'm having so much fun, because what happens? And what happens to the Marfa Girl, Kaylin Drake Burnett, and what happens to Donna when Miguel gets out of jail, and what happens to Mercedes, Nez in the movie, and what happens to Adam? So I can just, I'm really having fun figuring out the second movie.
Yeah. Well, another thing I wanted to ask: how would you? Because Kids was about kids, Ken Park was more about families and the kids. And how would you classify Marfa Girl? What would you put that into?
Well, I think it's about racism. I think it's kind of a microcosm of what's going on in the country today with all the hullabaloo about the illegal immigrants, and especially the Hispanics. It seems to be a movement where everything is blamed on the poorest people, which is kind of the way it's always been. So you have like immigrants who are illegal coming into this country, which has always happened. They're coming in from El Salvador, coming in from Guatemala, coming in from Mexico, coming in from the Dominican Republic, coming in from and so let's like get the Latinos and blame every fucking thing about our economy and blame everything on the poorest fucking people who are just trying to find a better life. And because of drugs and illegal drugs, we can tie all that in there, and we can make them all. We can cast all Latinos as evil, drug-taking, fucked up our economy people. And so it's about racism. It's political, and then it's about the times they are changing. How like the internet and the access to the internet smartens up everybody. I mean, that's how the Arab Spring and the revolutions in the Middle East started with Twitter and the internet, because you can't keep these secrets anymore as to what's really going on in the world. And so even though these kids are growing up in this small town where everything happens like everything else, the culture is the 50s, but they have the internet, so they see everything. And as we were talking about earlier, whatever is happening now happened back then. So it's all kind of mixed up. And I can also combine characters and put all these different people that I've met, because I'm almost 70 years old, through my life, and I can combine them into one character, like the Border Patrol agent, just put all the shit on him, and then have everything that happened to Adam. The poor kid, I mean, he really got beat up in the movies. This is a skate kid from Marfa Girl, who I saw had this charisma and was very smart, very quiet kid. And I would see him with his friends, and they're all acting like teenagers. He was stupid and bubbly and all this. He was very quiet. When he said something, he was very intelligent. And that quality comes through in the movie, because he doesn't do a lot, but you can see inside his soul. You can see what he's thinking. He's very, very, has that kind of Marlon Brando quality to him. And then Mercedes, his girlfriend in the movie, is just like, incredible. And it turned out that her dream since she was 5 years old was to be a model. She always wanted to be a model, and she's model pretty. And I just saw her a bit ago. I went down to do some ADR, and she's only 6 months older, and she's just going to be a gorgeous woman. She's just more and more beautiful. And Adam's growing. They're both grown an inch, and his voice is deep. And I was up doing ADR, and I ended up not using it, but just like one line, because his voice is deep, it didn't really match. So they're growing fast. So it'll be fun to take them through puberty and as they grow up and what happens to them.